Hello everybody, this is Simon with Let's Play Sonic 2006. Shadow's Wave Ocean is perhaps his most interesting level. So far we've had a lot of levels that were pretty similar to their original incarnations, but with the bad parts cut out. And we had a few, like Kingdom Valley, which were rather heavily remixed, mostly boiling down to this part, but backwards and with a vehicle. Wave Ocean is that. We are in Sonic's Mark Speed section, flying backwards, but it also has a lot of original content that is Shadow exclusive. For being the penultimate one, it's not too difficult, but they tried their best to make the starter level for one character way different as a late game one for another, and I appreciate that. Remember when we were running through this cave with Sonic and getting tripped up by a lot of stuff and desperately trying to hit ring trails in order to stay on course? Well, now it's a shooting gallery where we just basically have to align ourselves with this medal if we want the medals, and then otherwise can rack up points. It is quite interesting in the sense that it really looks like it was made for Shadow in a way, because you know the glider fits, it has a good size, but you see the ramp leading up to it, they couldn't even be bothered to delete that. It is definitely just copied from from Sonic's Mark Speed section. But then this part here is also again made for the glider with this very sneakily, may I say stupidly, hidden silver medal in basically one of those pillars here. Overall, this section is completely inoffensive, like most glider sections tend to be, except for, you know, missing the medal, which did cause me to have to re-record at some point. And now we reach an Omega part. We have played as Omega a little bit in the boss fight, which was not the best introduction, but now we can play as him again and really appreciate all that he has got going for him. So first of all, if you do charge up, then you can shoot a homing blast to every enemy on the screen, which sometimes just doesn't work at all, because his lock-on is balked, as you can probably guess, because this is Sonic 2006. However, if you shoot from the air, just hovering normally, you shoot a projectile that is also homing, practically hits Cam and deals double damage. Which is phenomenal, so there is no reason not to always use this ability. He does have a melee attack, which is basically like a shotgun blast, which I'm doing right now, and it does barely anything. It's like Silver Slap, but you know, somehow even worse, because you can't even see the effect most of the time. So just don't. Yeah, it's completely pointless to use. Jump up, shoot from the air, and you will be fine in 99% of situations, unless you're playing the Amigo DLC, where they require you to use the homing, which is fun. Yeah, you can learn how to deal with him. Overall, however, from the Amigo characters in general, when it works, Omega is perhaps the most fun after Blaze. And actually another thing, which we're going to see in a second as I pick up some speed, he's actually the fastest character in the game. Once you activate the jet mode by just going in one direction for a short bit, then he's really moving, and that's really cool. And otherwise, he can grind, he can use springs, so and he can deal with a lot of enemies in a very short amount of time, as you can see here. So what's not to love? He's great. He is a little bit clunky in execution, because, you know, he is a character in Sonic 2006, and he relies on a lock-on system that is, yeah, I mean, let's say not the best coded, but overall, with his hover, as we see here, high precision, it's fine if you're used to air control being terrible, and at this point you should be. And all of the combat options, hi Dolphin, I never mind playing as Omega, and I would relish getting to play as him even more. This is the speech segment that was already repeated for Tails, and this is the best we get for him. Then it was repeated again for Blaze, of course, so we are quite familiar here, but I think in the context of who goes through here, maybe the most fun with Blaze, because Blaze is just a blast to play as, but definitely second place for sure for Omega, depending on your personal preference, of course. Tails is dead last, because come on, yeah, and Sonic goes through here as well, I guess. It's okay. I am deliberately killing the enemies here not just for points, because you are actually required to exterminate everything here, or at least up here, I don't quite know, to make a silver medal appear, which is fine and fun, because, you know, it's rewarding if it's something you want to do anyway, and that is blast all of these fools. I'm getting a lot of mileage out of the homing here, because it tends to work rather well if you have no obstacles in between the enemies, open field like here, you can hit all of them at once, and that is fine. Slowing down here because otherwise the line won't play out fully. Because as soon as you jump up here, immediately it switches. This is again another completely unique part here, and it will stay that way until the end of the level. All of the rest of the level is completely unique to Shadow, with the exception of some assets of the lighthouse and so on, which are reused, but generally all the geometry is just his own to explore basically, which is fun. By the way, do not jump down here after getting up using the homing attack on those birds, and also please try to not miss the homing attack, because there is no way to redo this basically, and you can't get back up here again if you do not get the silver medal right now, so you can't get it anymore. Yeah, this is what happens when the ring trail doesn't immediately disappear after you activate the lightspeed dash. It's fun. So yeah, the thing is with this original segment here, we have seen it before. I don't know if I like deliberately talked about it yet, but it is quite obvious that Shadow's story was made last. From the assets of the other characters, remixed, put together, sometimes making the level better in the end because it's like the last iteration, but sometimes also, as we see here in a bit, because they probably cobbled this together, well, relatively close to release, this part here is dumb. It's like there is nothing obviously wrong with it, but I could have finished it already and left 95% of it completely unexplored, because those 95% of it are also utterly pointless. All you can do here is basically jump around and activate some enemies and kill them for points, and in fact there are so many enemies in this level, you can finish it just with enemy points alone. My very first recording, where I missed some of the medals, because, you know, the glider segment is a little bit dumb, I did just that, get 50,000 points before reaching the final segment. You can do that too. You can screw around here and kill everything like I'm doing right now with the buggy. It's like it's an open field with the buggy, and you can use the missiles, and you don't have to, so that's good, because if you have to use the buggy it's trash, and you can do big jumps, and then there's a bunch of enemies up here, but this leads to nothing. We got the one silver medal that is optional up there, and there won't be one spawning here for killing all of these enemies. There is no extra one-up popping up if we kill all of them. This entire segment here, this whole beach, it's fun to explore. It's great to screw around in and kill some enemies, but it is completely and utterly pointless, devoid of any kind of reward or satisfaction if you are not here for the gameplay alone. Which I am. It's fun. I like this level, but from a level design standpoint, if you're just like going, okay, so but why did they put this here? I don't know. It's like they were saying, okay, we make this beach level, and then at some point we're gonna put an objective here, right? Like something like destroying the searchlights. Like you have to kill all the enemies to progress because Mephiles is trying to slow you down with his purple creatures or something. But no, it's just like they didn't get around to it. Maybe, I don't know. By the way, I did activate the switch, just teleporting into it, which is always fun. But this is the one thing you have to do. And now another faulty part of this level is, where do I go now? What did the switch actually activate? It's like there is always a point where, if you're playing like a modern Zelda game, for example, where it gets a little bit comical, where every time you pull a lever and the camera that game stops and the camera pulls around to show you a cutscene. Oh, it's this door, like, you know, the one door in the room right next to you that just got open, and it slowly shows you, and it's like, I get it, this is a game for kids. But in cases like this, I would have actually appreciated that, you know, because I didn't know which cave it was that just got open. I always get lost a little bit here. Anyway, this is also fun. Whenever you go onto this beach, you get a whole bunch of chaos energy and points out of nowhere, because there are some enemies that just spawn underneath the ground and just die immediately. And this also happens on the larger beach area. By the way, here's the second medal directly next to the second to last medal. They kind of ran out of ideas at this point, I feel like. But yeah, this is all completely poorly made. Speaking of poorly made things, the hovercraft. Do you know that it can actually hover? Well, I didn't until I was checking a few things out. Like, I learned this before this Let's Play, but in all the casual playthroughs beforehand, I had absolutely no idea that this can actually hover. You double tap to activate it, then you fly up, and this allows you to kill these things before they hit the water. If you just destroy the supports, then you don't get the points for them, because it's like they're getting killed by the environment. Same thing when you activate traps as silver, you just don't get credit for the kill. But here it's just like 1000 points each, so why not take it? Anyway, at this point I do have the 50,000 points required, so I'm just beelining to the end. Do not ask me what these springs are for, because, you know what, for some reason you can't get out of the hovercraft here. It is not possible to exit it, which is really weird and extremely concerning, considering what I'm going to show you at the end when I screw around a little bit more in this section, because it feels like you should have been able to at some point, but then they just deactivated it for reasons I cannot fathom at all, except, you know, for the very obvious one. This was one of the most rushed stages for sure, and like 20% of it at least just plain doesn't work. That it is still fun is a bit of a miracle. See you after the cutscene, which is also kind of good? Question mark?
This only proves you were created to stop Shadow, the ultimate life form. Don't tell me you didn't know. You may have been programmed by humanity, but what you did to Shadow in the future, that was your...
What just happened?
Shadow. The one that defeats and seals you in the future is me.
It's so unfair. Shadow's always here to defend the world. Despite that,
eventually, when something or someone is seen as too powerful, it is seen as a threat. And then the world becomes its enemy.
Shadow? Even if you believe everyone in the world will be against you, know that I'll always remain by your side. Remember that.
I will.
Wow, there was a lot of drama and gravitas and character moments. Like, I still don't really care, but writing-wise, this is definitely Sonic 06 firing on all cylinders, and you gotta give credit where it's due. Anyway, we are immediately in a town mission, the last one and a mandatory one, this time even without that slow bit of walking forcing you into another loading screen. I don't know if I should appreciate that or think that it's just the game structure completely breaking down. Anyway, you just missed it, but hey, why not subscribe for all of these cool skills I have and so on of immediately dying. Anyway, this is me screwing around with the hovercraft, and I like to remind you again that you can't exit the hovercraft. It just doesn't work. Once you're in there, you're committed. So I'm trying to get up here, you know, and see what is actually on these platforms, because it seems like, okay, so there you do a homing attack chain over there, and you do a little bit on foot, but you can't get up here. Like, it just doesn't work. What is this dolphin doing? And even getting back up here is a bit of a chore. So let's try if it's like here, and then you hover over maybe. It's like, no, it doesn't work. By the way, you can't change directions in mid-air. It just doesn't work. You're always locked to trajectory after you start hovering. And may I say, like, it's a daring statement, but this thing doesn't work in the slightest. It is very bad. And yeah, and this can also happen. Like, you try hovering up there and then you get physics, and then yeah, and I keep trying to get up here, like I'm doing my best, okay, but it just doesn't work. And I don't know if there are any 06 savants who know exactly how to handle this section and have explored it when they were a kid, like tried to do this and figured out at some point, and they're like laughing at me like, no, it's Simon, it's really easy, like you use this ramp, but you take it with speed and then you go to the right and then you actually land up there, but this can't be intended, you know. It is very obvious to me that they wanted you to get on this very first platform. Whoa, that was awesome. But you can't. It's too high. It just doesn't work. It rejects your presence, and then you're sad. I wanted to explore this part of the level. It looks neat, but this is the best I can do, and I can't jump out. If I could jump out, I would be on there, but nope. Just falling over, sad, unfulfilled, terrible. Yeah, second best I could do. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work. It's a sad end. Thank you very much for your attention.